Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, where you get a chance to associate with Srila Prabhupada, with his devotees who are serious about hearing his books and associating with him, getting his sangha. Sadhu sangha, sarva shastra, labhamatra sadhu sangha, sarva siddhi hoy. Perfection comes from association with perfect devotees. So in this way we all get to associate with Srila Prabhupada, the perfect devotee. The founder, Acharya of our movement. He was very particular that we acknowledge that fact in all of his written material and whatever we have in terms of leaflets and pamphlets and letterhead and business cards, and wherever the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is written down, then founder Acharya, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, must be there by his will. And this is the way that we keep him in the center of our movement and keep the International Society for Krishna Consciousness vibrant and in his line. So we welcome you all. Thank you very much for coming again. It looks like we're going to be live. We had a little problem last night. It looked like it went on pause or something, and then when we tried to post it, it took a long time to post. And Radharaman told me that also it kind of cuts at the end. At about 56 minutes, it just cut. There wasn't the normal, all the things that I say right at the end before you stop. It wasn't there. So something, whatever it is. But we got most of it was recorded. So here we are, and let us start our reading by reciting Sanatana Goswami's deep, spiritually profound prayer to the Srimad-Bhagavatam. Srimad-Bhagavata Mahima Stotram. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of light to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidvanduditaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguru Mad Mahadana Manishtadaga Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu Sadhu Tadayin Atini Chochata Kada Hanamun Chagadachin Mam Premna Rit Kantayospuda. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 So here we are in the third canto, 14th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam. Very interesting chapter. A Diti has approached Kashyapa Muni for sexual intercourse because she wants to have a child. All of her co-wives have children and she doesn't. So she's very desirous, strongly desirous. And she's approached him, and because he's a Prajapati and a great sage, it's one of his duties is to populate the universe. So he's going to agree, but it's untimely, and we'll see as the story unfolds what happens to the progeny that come about by this irregular sex. So we're starting with text 21, and here Kashyapa is speaking to Diti after she has made this proposal to him. And the timing is wrong, but he's agreeing, but he's explaining why. Text 21. O Queen of the home, this is Kashyapa speaking to Diti. O Queen of the home, we are not able to act like you, nor could we repay you for what you have done, even if we worked for our entire life, or even after death. To repay you is not possible, even for those who are admirers of personal qualities. Purport. So much glorification of a woman by her husband indicates that he is henpecked, or is talking lightly in joke. Kashyapa meant that householders living with wives enjoy the heavenly blessings of sense enjoyment, and at the same time have no fear of going down to hell. The man in the renounced order of life has no wife and may be driven by sex desire to seek another woman or another's wife and thus go to hell. In other words, the so-called man in the renounced order who has left his house and wife goes to hell if he again desires sexual pleasure knowingly or unknowingly. In that way, the householders are on the side of safety. Therefore, husbands as a class can never repay their debt to women, either in this life or in the next. If they engage themselves in repaying the women through their whole lives, it is still not possible. Not all husbands are as able to appreciate the good qualities of their wives. But even though one is able to appreciate these qualities, it is still not possible to repay the debt to the wife. Such extraordinary praises by a husband for his wife are certainly in the mode of joking. Text 22. Even though it is not possible to repay you, I shall satisfy your sex desire immediately for the sake of begetting children. But you must wait for only a few seconds so that others may not reproach me. Purport. The henpecked husband may not be able to repay his wife for all the benefits that he derives from her. But as for begetting children by fulfilling sexual desire, it is not at all difficult for any husband unless he is thoroughly impotent. This is a very easy task for a husband under normal conditions. In spite of Kashyapa's being very eager, he requested her to wait for a few seconds so that others might not reproach him. He explains his position as follows. This particular time is most 23. This particular time is most inauspicious, because at this time the horrible-looking ghosts and constant companions of the Lord of the Ghosts are visible. Purport. Kashyapa has already told his wife Diti to wait for a while, and now he warns her that failure to consider the particular time will result in punishment from the ghosts and evil spirits who move during this time, along with their master, Lord Rudra. Text 24. Lord Shiva, the king of the ghosts, riding on the back of his bull carrier, travels at this time, accompanied by ghosts who follow him for their welfare. Purport. Lord Shiva or Rudra, the king of the ghosts. Lord Shiva or Rudra is the king of the ghosts. Ghostly characters worship Lord Shiva to be gradually guided toward a path of self-realization. Mayavadi philosophers are mostly worshippers of Lord Shiva, and Sripad Shankaracharya is considered to be the incarnation of Lord Shiva for preaching godlessness to the Mayavadi philosophers. Ghosts are bereft of a physical body because of their grievously sinful acts, such as suicide. The last resort of the ghostly characters in human society is to take shelter of suicide, either material or spiritual. Material suicide causes loss of the physical body, and spiritual suicide causes loss of the individual identity. Mayavadi philosophers desire to lose their individuality and merge into the impersonal, spiritual Brahmajyoti existence. Lord Shiva, being very kind to the ghosts, sees that although they are condemned, they get physical bodies. He places them into the wombs of women who indulge in sexual intercourse regardless of the restrictions on time and circumstance. Kashyapa wanted to impress this fact upon Diti so that she might wait for a while. Text 25. Lord Shiva's body is reddish, and he is unstained, though he is covered with ashes. His hair is dusty from the whirlwind dust of the burning crematorium. He is the younger brother of your husband, and he sees with his 3 eyes. Purport. Lord Shiva is not an ordinary living entity, nor is he in the category of Vishnu, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is far more powerful than any living entity, up to the standard of Brahma, yet he is not on an equal level with Vishnu. Since he is almost like Lord Vishnu, Shiva can see past, present, and future. One of his eyes is like the sun, another is like the moon, and his third eye, which is between his eyebrows, is like fire. He can generate fire from his middle eye, and he is able to vanquish any powerful living entity, including Brahma. Yet he does not live pompously in a nice house, etc. Nor does he possess any material properties, although he is master of the material world. He lives mostly in the crematorium, where dead bodies are burnt, and the whirlwind dust of the crematorium is his bodily dress. He is unstained by material contamination. Kashyapa took him as his younger brother because the younger sister of Diti, Kashyapa's wife, was married to Lord Shiva. The husband of one's sister is considered one's brother. By that social relationship, Lord Shiva happened to be the younger brother of Kashyapa. Kashyapa warned his wife that because Lord Shiva would see their sex indulgence, the time was not appropriate. Diti might argue that they would enjoy sex in a private place, but Kashyapa reminded her that Lord Shiva had 3 eyes, called the sun, moon, and fire, and one cannot escape his vigilance any more than one can escape Vishnu. Although seen by the police, a criminal is sometimes not immediately punished. The police wait for the proper time to apprehend him. The forbidden time for sexual intercourse would be noted by Lord Shiva, and Diti would meet with proper punishment by giving birth to a child of ghostly character or a godless impersonalist. Kashyapa foresaw this, and thus he warned his wife, Diti. Text 26. Lord Shiva regards no one as his relative, yet there is no one who is not connected with him. He does not regard anyone as very favorable or abominable. We respectfully worship the remnants of his foodstuff, and we vow to accept what is rejected by him. Purport. Kashyapa informed his wife that just because Lord Shiva happened to be his brother-in-law, that should not encourage her in her offense towards him. Kesava warned her that actually Lord Shiva is not connected with anyone, nor is anyone his enemy. Since he is one of the three controllers of the universal affairs, he is equal to everyone. His greatness is incomparable because he is a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is said that among all the devotees of the Personality of Godhead, Lord Shiva is the greatest. Thus, the remnants of foodstuff left by him are accepted by other devotees as Mahaprasad, or great spiritual foodstuff. The remnants of foodstuff offered to Krishna are called prasad, but when the same prasad is eaten by a great devotee, like Lord Shiva, it is called Mahaprasad. Lord Shiva is so great that he does not care for the material prosperity for which every one of us is so eager. Parvati, who is the powerful material energy personified, is under his full control as his wife. Yet he does not use her even to build a residential house. He prefers to remain without shelter, and his great wife also agrees to live with him humbly. People in general worship Goddess Durga, the wife of Lord Shiva, for material prosperity, but Lord Shiva engages her in his service without material desire. He simply advises his great wife that of all kinds of worship, the worship of Vishnu is the highest, and greater than that is the worship of a great devotee, or anything in relation with Vishnu. Text 27. Although no one in the material world is equal to or greater than Lord Shiva, and although his unimpeachable character is followed by great souls to dismantle the mass of nations, he nevertheless remains as if a devil to give salvation to all devotees of the Lord. Purport. Lord Shiva's uncivilized, devilish characteristics are never abominable, because he teaches the sincere devotees of the Lord how to practice detachment from material enjoyment. He is called Mahadev, or the greatest of all demigods, and no one is equal to or greater than him in the material world. He is almost equal to Lord Vishnu, although he always associates with Maya, Durga. He is above the reactionary stage of the three modes of material nature, and although he is in charge of devilish characters in the mode of ignorance, he is not affected by such association. Text 28. Unfortunate, foolish persons, not knowing that he is engaged in his own self, laugh at him. Such foolish persons engage in maintaining the body, which is eatable by dogs, with dresses, ornaments, garlands, and ointments. Purport. Lord Shiva never accepts any luxurious dress, garland, ornament, or ointment. But those who are addicted to the decoration of the body, which is finely eatable by dogs, very luxuriously maintain it as the self. Such persons do not understand Lord Shiva, but they approach him for luxurious material comforts. There are two kinds of devotees of Lord Shiva. One class is the gross materialist, seeking only bodily comforts from Lord Shiva, and the other class desires to be one with him. They are mostly impersonalists and prefer to chant Shivoham, I am Shiva, or after liberation, I shall become one with Lord Shiva. In other words, the karmis and jnanis are generally devotees of Lord Shiva, but they do not properly understand his real purpose in life. Sometimes so-called devotees of Lord Shiva imitate him in using poisonous intoxicants. Lord Shiva once swallowed an ocean of poison, and thus his throat became blue. The imitation Shivas tried to follow him by indulging in poisons, and thus they are ruined. The real purport of Lord Shiva is to serve the soul of the soul, Lord Krishna. He desires that all luxurious articles, such as nice apartments, he desires that all luxurious articles, such as nice garments, garlands, ornaments, and cosmetics, be given to Krishna only, because Krishna is the real enjoyer. He refuses to accept such luxurious items himself because they are meant only for Krishna. However, since they do not know this purpose of Lord Shiva, foolish persons either laugh at him or profitlessly try to imitate him. Text 29. Demigods like Brahma also follow the religious rites observed by him. He is the controller of the material energy, which causes the creation of the material world. He is great, and therefore his devilish characteristics are simply imitation. Purport. Lord Shiva is the husband of Durga, the controller of the material energy. Durga is personified material energy, and Lord Shiva, being her husband, is the controller of the material energy. He is also the incarnation of the mode of ignorance, and one of the three deities representing the Supreme Lord. As his representative, Lord Shiva is identical with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is very great, and his renunciation of all material enjoyment is an ideal example of how one should be materially unattached. One should therefore follow in his footsteps and be unattached to matter, not imitate his uncommon acts like drinking poison. Text 30. Maitreya said, Diti was thus informed by her husband, but she was pressed by Cupid for sexual satisfaction. She caught hold of the clothing of the great Brahmana sage, just like a shameless public prostitute. Purport. The difference between a married wife and a public prostitute is that one is restrained in sex life by the rules and regulations of the scriptures, whereas the other is unrestricted in sex life and is conducted solely by the strong sex urge. Although very enlightened, Kashyapa, the great sage, became a victim of his prostitute wife. Such is the strong force of material energy. Text 31. Understanding his wife's purpose, he was obliged to perform the forbidden act, and thus, after offering his obeisances unto worshipable fate, he lay with her in a secluded place. Purport. It appears from the talks of Kashyapa and his wife that he was a worshipper of Lord Shiva, and although he knew that Lord Shiva would not be pleased with him for such a forbidden act, he was obliged to act by his wife's desire, and thus he offered his obeisances unto fate. He knew that the child born of such untimely sexual intercourse would certainly not be a good child, but could not protect himself because he was too obligated to his wife. In a similar case, however, when Thakur Haridas was tempted by a public prostitute at the dead of night, he avoided the allurement because of his perfection in Krishna consciousness. That is the difference between a Krishna conscious person and others. Kashyapa Muni was greatly learned and enlightened, and he knew all the rules and regulations of systematic life, yet he failed to protect himself from the attack of sex desire. Thakur Haridas was not born of a Brahmana family, nor was he himself a Brahmana. Yet he could protect himself from such an attack due to his being Krishna conscious. Thakur Haridas used to chant the holy name of the Lord 300,000 times daily. Text 32. Thereafter the Brahmana took his bath in the water and controlled his speech by practicing trance meditating on the eternal effulgence and chanting the holy Gayatri hymns within his mouth, a little different than an ordinary person after sex. Purport: as one has to bathe after using as one has to take bath after using a toilet, so one has to wash himself with water after sexual intercourse, especially when at a forbidden time. Kashyapa Muni meditated on the impersonal Brahmajyoti by chanting the Gayatri mantra within his mouth. When a Vedic mantra is chanted within the mouth so that only the chanter can hear, the chanting is called japa. But when such mantras are chanted loudly, it is called kirtan. The Vedic hymn, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, can be chanted both softly to oneself or loudly. Therefore it is called the Mahamantra, or the great hymn. Kashyapa Muni appears to be an impersonalist. Comparing his character with that of Thakur Haridas, as referred to above, it is clear that the personalist is stronger in sense control than the impersonalist. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita as param drishtva nivartate. That is, one ceases to accept lower grade things when one is situated in a superior condition. One is supposed to be purified by taking bath and chanting Gayatri. But the Mahamantra is so powerful that one can chant loudly or softly in any condition, and he is protected from all the evils of material existence. Text 33. O son of the Bharat family, Diti, after this, went nearer to her husband, her face lowered because of her faulty action. She spoke as follows. Purport: when one is ashamed of an abominable action, one naturally becomes down-faced. Diti came to her senses after the abominable sexual intercourse with her husband. Such sexual intercourse is condemned as prostitution. In other words, sex life with one's wife is equal to prostitution if the regulations are not properly followed. Text 34. The beautiful Diti said, "My dear Brahmana, kindly see that my embryo is not killed by Lord Shiva, the Lord of all living entities, because of the great offense I have committed against him." Purport: Diti was conscious of her offense and was anxious to be excused by Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva has two popular names, Rudra and Ashutosh. He is very prone to anger as well as quickly pacified. Diti knew that because of his being quickly angered, he might spoil the pregnancy she had so unlawfully achieved. But because he was also Ashutosh, she implored her Brahmana husband to help her in pacifying Lord Shiva, for her husband was a great devotee of Lord Shiva. In other words, Lord Shiva might have been angry with Diti because she obliged her husband to transgress the law, but he would not refuse her husband's prayer. Therefore, the application for excuse was submitted through her husband. She prayed to Shiva, Lord Shiva, as follows. Text 35. Let me offer my obeisances unto the angry Lord Shiva, who is simultaneously the very ferocious great demigod and the fulfiller of all material desires. He is all auspicious and forgiving, but his anger can immediately move him to chastise. Purport: Diti prayed for the mercy of Lord Shiva very cleverly. She prayed, "The Lord can cause me to cry, but if he likes, he can also stop my crying, because he is Ashutosh. He is so great that if he likes, he can immediately destroy my pregnancy. But his mercy can also fulfill my desire that my pregnancy not be spoiled. Because he is all auspicious, it is not difficult for him to excuse me from being punished, although he is now ready to punish me because I have moved his great anger. He appears like a man, but he is the Lord of all men. Text 36. Let him be pleased with us, since he is my brother-in-law, the husband of my sister Sati. He is also the worshipable Lord of all women. He is the personality of all opulences and can show mercy towards women who are excused even by the uncivilized hunters. Purport. Lord Shiva is the husband of Sati, one of the sisters of Diti. Diti invoked the pleasure of her sister Sati, so that Sati would request her husband to excuse her. Besides that, Lord Shiva is the worshipable Lord of all women. He is naturally very kind towards women, on whom even the uncivilized hunters also show their mercy. Since Lord Shiva is himself associated with women, he knows very well their defective nature, and he might not take very seriously Diti's unavoidable offense, which occurred due to her faulty nature. Every virgin girl is supposed to be a devotee of Lord Shiva. Diti remembered her childhood worship of Lord Shiva and begged his mercy. Text 37. Maitreya said, the great sage Kashyapa thus addressed his wife, who was trembling because of fear that her husband was offended. She understood that she had been dissuaded from his daily duties by offering evening prayers. She understood that he had been dissuaded from his daily duties of offering evening prayers, yet she desired the welfare of her children in the world. Text 38. The learned Kashyapa said, because of your minds being polluted, because of defilement of the particular time, because of your negligence of my directions, and because of your being apathetic to the demigods, everything was inauspicious. Purport. The conditions for having good progeny in society are that the husband should be disciplined in religious and regulated principles, and the wife should be faithful to the husband. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that sexual intercourse, according to religious principles, is a representation of Krishna consciousness. Before engaging in sexual intercourse, both the husband and the wife must consider their mental condition, the particular time, the husband's direction, the obedience to the demigods. According to Vedic society, there is a suitable auspicious time for sex life, which is called the time for Garbhadhana. Diti neglected all the principles of scriptural injunctions, and therefore, although she was very anxious for auspicious children, she was informed that her children would not be worthy of to be the sons of a Brahmana. This is a clear indication. There is a clear indication herein that a Brahmana's son is not always a Brahmana. Personalities like Ravana and Hiranyakashipu were actually born of Brahmanas, but they were not accepted as Brahmanas because their fathers did not follow the regulated principles for their birth. Such children are called demons or Rakshasas. There were only 1 or 2 Rakshasas in the previous ages due to negligence of the disciplinary methods. But during the age of Kali, there is no discipline in sex life. How then can one expect good children? Certainly unwanted children cannot be a source of happiness in society. But through the Krishna consciousness movement, they can be raised to the human standard by chanting the holy name of God. That is the unique contribution of Lord Chaitanya to human society. Text 39. O haughty one, you will have 2 contemptuous sons, born of your condemned womb. Unlucky woman, they will cause constant lamentation to all the three worlds. Purport. Contemptuous sons are born of the condemned womb of their mother. In Bhagavad Gita 140 it is said, when there is deliberate negligence of the regulated principles of religious life, the women as a class become polluted, and as a result, there are unwanted children. This is especially true for boys. If the mother is not good, there cannot be good sons. The learned Kashyapa could foresee the character of the sons who would be born of the condemned womb of Diti. The womb was condemned because of the mothers being too sexually inclined, and thus transgressing all the laws and injunctions of the scriptures. In a society where such women are predominant, one should not expect good children. Text 40. They will kill poor, faultless living entities, torture women, and enrage the great souls. Purport. Demoniac activities are predominant when innocent, faultless living entities are killed. Women are tortured, and the great souls engaged in Krishna consciousness are enraged. In a demoniac society, innocent animals are killed to satisfy the tongue, and women are tortured by unnecessary sexual indulgence. Where there are women and meat, there must be liquor and sex indulgence. When these are prominent in society, by God's grace, one can expect a change in the social order by the Lord himself or by his bona fide representative. Text 41. At that time, the Lord of the universe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the well-wisher of all living entities, will descend and kill them, just as Indra smashes the mountains with his thunderbolts. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 4.8, the Lord descends as an incarnation to deliver the devotees and kill the miscreants. The Lord of the universe, and of everything, would appear in order to kill the sons of Diti because of their offending the devotees of the Lord. There are many agents of the Lord, such as Indra, Chandra, Varuna, Goddess Durga, and Kali, who can chastise any formidable miscreants in the world. The example of mountains being smashed by a thunderbolt is very appropriate. The mountain is considered the most strongly built body within the universe, yet it can be easily smashed by the arrangement of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Personality of Godhead does not need to descend in order to kill any strongly built body. He comes down just for the sake of his devotees. Everyone is subject to the miseries offered by material nature, but because the activities of miscreants, such as killing innocent people and animals or torturing women, are harmful to everyone and are therefore a source of pain for the devotees, the Lord comes down. He descends only to give relief to his ardent devotees. The killing of the miscreant by the Lord is also the mercy of the Lord towards the miscreant, although apparently the Lord takes the side of the devotee. Since the Lord is absolute, there is no difference between his activities of killing the miscreants and favoring the devotees. Text 42. Diti said, "It is very good that my sons will be magnanimously killed by the arms of the Personality of Godhead with his Sudarshan weapon. O my husband, may they never be killed by the wrath of the Brahmana devotees." Purport. When Diti heard from her husband that the great souls would be angered by the activities of her sons, she was very anxious. She thought that her sons might be killed by the wrath of the Brahmanas. The Lord does not appear when the Brahmanas become angry at someone, because the wrath of a Brahmana is sufficient in itself. He certainly appears, however, when his devotee simply becomes sorry. A devotee of the Lord never prays to the Lord to appear for the sake of the troubles the miscreants caused for him, and he never bothers him by asking for protection. Rather, the Lord is anxious to give protection to the devotees. Diti knew well that the killing of her sons by the Lord would also be his mercy, and therefore she says that the wheel and arms of the Lord are magnanimous. If someone is killed by the wheel of the Lord and is thus fortunate enough to see the arms of the Lord, that is sufficient for his liberation. Such good fortune is not achieved even by the great sages. Text 43. A person who is condemned by a Brahmana or is always fearful to other living entities is not favored either by those who are already in hell or by those in the species in which he is born. Purport. A practical example of a condemned species of life is the dog. Dogs are so condemned that they never show any sympathy to their contemporaries. Text 44 and 45. The learned Kashyapa said, because of your lamentation, penitence, and proper deliberation, and also because of your unflinching faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and your adoration for Lord Shiva and me, one of the sons, Prahlad, of your son Hiranyakashipu, will be an improved devotee of the Lord, and his name will be broadcast equally with that of the Personality of Godhead. Text 46. In order to follow in his footsteps, saintly persons will try to emulate his character by practicing freedom from animosity, just as the purifying processes of rectified gold of inferior quality. Purport. Yoga practice, the practice of purifying one's existential position. Yoga practice, the process of purifying one's existential identity, is based mainly on self-control. Without self-control, one cannot practice freedom from animosity. In the conditional state, every living being is envious of another living being. But in the liberated state, there is an absence of animosity. Prahlad Maharaj was tortured by his father in so many ways, yet after the death of his father, he prayed for his father's liberation by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He did not ask any benediction that he might have asked, but he prayed that his atheistic father might be liberated. He never cursed any of the persons who engaged in torturing him at the instigation of his father. How wonderful is that?
Yeah.
I'll let that sink in for a minute. Text 47. Everyone will be pleased with him, because the Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Controller of the universe, is always satisfied with a devotee who does not wish for anything beyond him. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is situated everywhere as the Super Soul, and he can dictate to anyone and everyone as he likes. The future grandson of Diti, who was predicted to be a great devotee, would be liked by everyone, even by the enemies of his father, because he would have no other vision besides the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A pure devotee of the Lord sees the presence of his worshipable Lord everywhere. The Lord reciprocates in such a way that all living entities in whom the Lord is dwelling as the Supersoul, also like a pure devotee, because the Lord is present in their hearts and can dictate to them to be friendly to his devotee. There are many instances in history wherein even the most ferocious animal became friendly to a pure devotee of the Lord. Text 48. That topmost devotee of the Lord will have expanded intelligence and expanded influence and will be the greatest of the great souls. Due to matured devotional service, he will certainly be situated in transcendental ecstasy and will enter the spiritual sky after quitting this material world. Purport. There are 3 stages of transcendental development in devotional service, which are technically called Sthaya Bhava, Anubhava, and Mahabhava. Continual perfect love of Godhead is called Sthaya Bhava, and when it is performed in a particular type of transcendental relationship, it is called Anubhava. But the stage of Mahabhava is visible amongst the personal pleasure potency energies of the Lord. It is understood that the grandson of Diti, named Prahlad Maharaj, would constantly meditate on the Lord and reiterate his activities. Because he would constantly remain in meditation, he would easily transfer himself to the spiritual world after quitting his material body. Such meditation is still more conveniently performed by chanting and hearing the holy name of the Lord. This is especially recommended in this age of Kali. Text 49. He will be virtuously qualified. He will be a virtuously qualified reservoir of all good qualities. He will be jolly and happy in others' happiness, distressed in others' distress, and will have no enemies. He will be a destroyer of the lamentation of all the universes, like the pleasant moon after the summer sun. Purport. Prahlad Maharaj, the exemplary devotee of the Lord, had all the good qualities humanly possible. Although he was the emperor of this world, he was not profligate. Beginning from his childhood, he was the reservoir of all good qualities. Without enumerating those qualities, it is said here summarily that he was endowed with all good qualities. That is the sign of a pure devotee. The most important characteristic of a pure devotee is that he is not lampata or licentious. And another quality is that he is always eager to mitigate the miseries of suffering humanity. The most obnoxious misery of a living entity is his forgetfulness of Krishna. A pure devotee therefore always tries to evoke everyone's Krishna consciousness. This is the panacea for all miseries. Text 50. Your grandson will be able to see inside and outside the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose wife is the beautiful goddess of fortune. The Lord can assume the form desired by the devotee, and his face is always beautifully decorated with earrings. Purport. It is predicted herewith that the grandson of Diti, Prahlad Maharaj, would not only see the personality of Godhead within himself by meditation, but would also be able to see him personally with his eyes. This direct vision is possible only for one who is highly elevated in Krishna consciousness. For the Lord is not possible to see with material eyes. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has multifarious eternal forms such as Krishna, Baladev, Sankarsana, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Vasudeva, Narayana, Rama, Nishinga, Varaha, and Vamana. And the devotee of the Lord knows all those Vishnu forms. A pure devotee becomes attached to one of the eternal forms of the Lord, and the Lord is pleased to appear before him in the form desired. A devotee does not imagine something whimsical about the form of the Lord, nor does he ever think that the Lord is impersonal and can assume a form desired by the non-devotee. The non-devotee has no idea of the form of the Lord, and thus he cannot think of any one of the above-mentioned forms. But whenever a devotee sees the Lord, he sees him in a most beautifully decorated form, accompanied by his constant companion, the goddess of fortune, who is eternally beautiful. Text 51. The sage Maitreya said, hearing that her grandson would be a great devotee and that her sons would be killed by Krishna, Diti was highly pleased in mind. Purport. Diti was very aggrieved to learn that because of her untimely pregnancy, her sons would be demons and would fight with the Lord. But when she heard that her grandson would be a great devotee and that her two sons would be killed by the Lord, she was very satisfied. As the wife of a great sage and the daughter of a great Prajapati, Daksha, she knew that being killed by the personality of Godhead is a great fortune. Since the Lord is absolute, his acts of violence and non-violence are both on the absolute platform. There is no difference in such acts of the Lord. Mundane violence and non-violence have nothing to do with the Lord's acts. A demon killed by him attains the same result as one who attains liberation after many, many births of penance and austerity. The word brisham is significant herein because it indicates that Diti was pleased beyond her expectations. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the third canto, 14th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled Pregnancy of Diti in the Evening. Well done. Haribol. Hare Krishna. One more chapter of Bhagavatam under the belt. We've heard Srimad-Bhagavatam, one chapter more under the belt. No one can take it away. It's an eternal benefit to everyone and anyone and everyone who hears it. Hare Krishna. All right, now it is almost 7:30. We started a little later. Not too much later though. So we'll stop here for tonight and we'll have reflections. Do we have something on the from the cyberspace? Was our transmission successful tonight?
We got word that Brian Phillips was suffering technical difficulties from his end.
Uh-huh.
So.
But we were okay from our end, from our side.
Yes.
Well, Brian, we hope that despite the technical difficulties, our understanding is that if we don't have any problem over here recording it, then if you listen to it afterwards, you'll be able to hear the recording without a break. Just for your information, in case you didn't know that. And thanks for coming and listening, Brian. I hope that we can meet each other soon in the UK. Hare Krishna. And there were lots and lots of nice lessons in this pastime. how important it is to actually obey God's laws.
Mm-hmm.
And how can we obey God's laws unless we find out what they are? How is it possible to be a religious person if you don't know what God's laws are?
It's not.
It's not possible. Therefore, human society now, I mean, there are scriptures that state, and I know this is going to be a very controversial statement, because of the way the world is now. If anybody puts a restriction on anything, it's like an anathema, to human progress or human development. But the fact is that, fire by accident or accident by fire, death by fire especially, is a result of illicit sex. And I happen, to know for a fact, my mother, when she passed away, before she passed away, she told me that one thing that really disappointed her was when she found out. She was a teacher, and she was a teacher in a high school for a long, long time. And I guess she was kind of plugged into what was going on. And she found out later in her life that area where we lived, where I was growing up, that whole Northern California area, was one of the pioneering places for pornography, the most gross forms of pornography. And therefore, it isn't surprising that California is burning to the ground. That's very hard to hear, and it might not be completely acceptable to everyone. But hey, as Kashyapa was able to say to Diti what was going to happen, because he knew Shastra, he knew the principles of religion.
Yeah, I like how Kashyapa pays obeisance.
Here's Matt's going to give us a little realization here.
Kashyapa, being very saintly, knew he was in perfect consciousness about what he was about to do, and he paid his obeisances unto fate.
Yes.
Which I thought was interesting.
Yes.
Meaning that he didn't even know what was going to happen from that action.
No, he did. That's why he was begging forgiveness from fate.
Oh, okay, okay.
Later on, that he knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
He told her exactly what was going to happen, and he even knew about Prahlad Maharaj. I mean, Kashyapa is not an ordinary person. He's one of the first Prajapatis and one of the first sages of the universe. So, but the thing about Kashyapa, which was brought out in the first part of the reading, is that he wasn't a pure devotee of Krishna. This is the difference between the pure devotees of Krishna and the elevated devotees of Lord Shiva. Because Lord Shiva is considered to be the greatest Vaishnava, because his mind is fixed on Sankarshan, an incarnation of Krishna, an expansion of Krishna. So he's always worshipping Krishna and Vishnu, or Krishna himself, and recommending that others do so also. But because of his agreeing to become almost like the administrator or the controller of the mode of ignorance specifically, and that came out when he came into the world through the forehead of Brahma in his mixed blue and red color, and therefore he had a certain nature, and he produced progeny, but they were very, very angry and very dangerous, and they were destroying everything. And Lord Brahma, he's trying to create the universe, and Lord Shiva is trying to destroy it. So Lord Brahma said, okay, my dear son, you're very dutiful, you're obedient to your father, and you're going and having progeny, but look what they're doing, so just hold off, go to the forest, do penance and meditation, and wait, and the time will come when your services will be properly utilized under religious principles. So Kashyapa, he was actually, like it said in the purports and in the verses even, that he knew what was going to happen, but he was inclined because he was a Prajapati. It's one of his services. And his wife wasn't actually simply lusty. She was, but she wanted to have a child, and her womanly nature got the better of her. So it's a wonderful lesson to be learned. This was, they were the two of the first demons in the universe, or at least in this. Yeah.
We have a reflection from Rati Manjari.
Yes, Rati. Hare Krishna.
Oops. Rati says, I came in late because of my vicious forgetfulness of the Lord. But what I heard and what struck me immediately is this sentence. Without self-control, one cannot practice freedom from animosity.
Ooh, very nice. Very nice. Because why? Because the nature of the material world, when everyone has come here to forget Krishna and imitate Krishna, and therefore they're all of us are trying to be controllers, unless you become surrender being a devotee, then there's naturally going to be clashes. If everyone's trying to be God, naturally you're going to have some pretty big clashes, and therefore animosity is natural in the material world. Look what's going on in the world today. It's heavy. There's heavy animosity between individuals and between groups and even family members and nations, religions. It's just all based on it. It's the nature of material existence, and embedded in this last section is the truth that the basic principle of that material nature is sex. Because it all comes about from the intercourse of Shiva and Parvati. Shiva and Durga. Their sexual intercourse is what injects living entities into the material world, and therefore the whole beginning of the material existence is sexual intercourse. Therefore it naturally is all pervasive. So therefore her point is most well taken by me, because unless you have self-control over your sex urge, there's no possibility to go forward in your spiritual life, and therefore to control the animosity that is naturally there in all living beings in the material world.
And that actually dovetails into Brian Phillips' reflection. And Brian Phillips also said, "Hello Maharaj, I dream of that too." I suppose meeting face to face.
Yes.
The reception today was perfect. The problems with previous transmissions have been purely on his end. But he said, further to the comment you've just made, sadly the majority of people find the idea of cause and effect unpalatable.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, that's right, because the problem with material existence is that no one really wants to take responsibility. And therefore they can't control themselves. Their desire is to enjoy. Therefore they can't control their senses. They can't voluntarily restrain themselves from material enjoyment, especially from sex. And now you can see the results. All of these things that are happening, all this climate crisis, it's all from the energy that the conditioned souls need to gratify their senses in more and more diverse and more sensual way. Because what happens is, when you have sex or when you have sense gratification, your senses become dulled by it. And then over time, in order to get that titillation, in order to get that buzz from it, you have to do something more gross. Therefore the natural sequence, the natural effect of sense gratification is that it puts one down into lower and lower kinds of sense gratification. And therefore it's harder and harder to control oneself. Therefore, when somebody comes up with the idea, hey, why don't we just stop this? Everybody says, impossible. The example was, one of Prabhupada's godbrothers went to England and met the Lord of Jetland, big guy, big controller, royal family and big, I don't know what, probably was a lord in the House of Lords in England, one of the top, like the Senate in America. And he asked this devotee, can you make me a brahmana? And he said, yeah, sure. He said, you just have to do this. You have to follow 4 principles. No illicit sex, no gambling, no mating, and no intoxication. He immediately said, impossible. There's no submission to Shastra, to the Word of God. There's no submission to God, no submission to anyone else. Therefore, it's such a mess. It's our duty as devotees to become submissive to Krishna and to Krishna consciousness and to the laws of nature, and ourselves be right, and ourselves be within our society acting properly, so that we can show example for others.
Rodney has another reflection.
Yes.
Rati says, and what I'm impressed by is that you're undaunted in your continuation of the readings, whether in a full room of Vaishnavas or sitting alone in your bhajan kutir with your extremely fortunate companion, Bhakti-mat, and still making arrangements for us to share this amazing experience. You are a wonderful example to me of steadiness and attachment to your service to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Well, that made my day. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Radhi Manjari. And thank you everyone out there in cyberspace. We're going to close up tonight a little bit early. And we wish you all well. We wish that you stay aboard this vessel that's flying, with the winds of the instructions of Srimad-Bhagavatam and Srila Prabhupada's, association to higher and higher states of consciousness. And may we spread this nectar. This is nectar, it's the truth. There's a saying, and I don't remember who said it, but the truth shall set you free. That's what this is happening. These truths, they may be a little hard to untake sometimes, but anyone who can hear them, who's honest, because this is what an honest person means, to be able to hear the truth and accept it. Honesty doesn't just mean doing what you say you're going to do, and paying your bills on time and all that kind of stuff. It also means when you hear something that's actually true, you can accept it. And if you hear on that level and don't argue, then you can get it. You get Krishna. Alright, Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, Samabeda Bhaktabinda ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo, Hare Krishna.